Welcome to Ring Talk, episode 102, with myself, Martin Theobald, also known as Steve Bunce's favourite anonymous internet geek. More on that later. Before we get to that, though, let's take a look back at the action from the weekend, where Conor Benn picked up his best win to date, outpointing Formella over 10 rounds. It was decisive, it was vicious. Conor Benn, he's growing on people, I think, both in and out of the ring. The speech that he gave at the end about his silk pyjamas in his heated Range Rover seats, it won a lot of people over. His performance won a lot of people over. There's an appetite now to see the Josh Kelly fight. I think fair play to Matchroom and Hearn. There's a lot of pressure to get that fight made earlier on in their careers. All parties seem to put that off, and it's grown and grown into what could be a massive fight. If Josh Kelly comes through David Avanesian, then that fight, it's far bigger. It would be far bigger in 6 months' time than it was perhaps, a year ago. So, credit to all for that. Credit to Conor Benn for coming through the win. Looked really good doing so. I think Formella was great matchmaking in that they could keep name-dropping Sean Porter over the course of the build-up for the week and the fight. He was no great shakes. You're not in a rush to see Formella again. You'd like to see Conor Benn again. Fabio Wardley picked up the second round knockout against Richard Lartey. He looked really, really good in doing that. There were question marks over Lartey's punch durability, should we say. But I thought it was a legitimate punch. I think Wardley's going places. He's a cracking fighter. What else? So Jez Smith picked up the win on the card. Beating Ben Ridings, as we'd called on here last week. Just too much experience for him. Yes, there was a size difference. Smith was a smaller man, but he overcame that by just using his ring nous. I like these kind of random matchups, picking two people from across the country that aren't signed to Matchroom. I like it. Hearn has said in the past about his winner stays on. I'd really like to see that be the case, although we haven't, as yet, to my knowledge, seen a kind of winner stays on scenario whereby, somebody who has won one of the fights is picked up again for a future fight on a Matchroom card. But I'd really like to see that. Let's hope they can make that happen. And finally, Alan Babbage stopped Tom Little and retired Tom Little. I don't think it's a major surprise to anyone that was the outcome. Tom Little, for all his heart, all his desire, all the fact that he's a likeable bloke, I think the time has come to call an end to that career. He's been fed to too many of these Matchroom prospects. I feel for him to that regard. I'd like to have seen maybe his career managed slightly differently, but best of luck to Tom in the future. I hope he stays in the sport in some way. He's a real character of a bloke. He's got a lot to offer still. Alan Babbage, still no idea. No idea what level Alan Babbage is, where he's going, etc. But it's going to be fun to watch. He's never in a boring fight. What else got announced during the week? Boxing won't receive any funding from the government as part of their emergency sports funding. We've got some questions coming up on that later, as well as, my friend Steve. So over to me and Steve Goodwin now. Steve that actually does seem to like me, maybe. We'll catch you on the other side. We've got plenty of people giving their opinions, by the way, coming up about the Dubois Joyce fight. So get involved with that. Cracking fight coming up this weekend. I'll see you in 2 secs with Steve Goodwin. Welcome, Steve. How you doing?
I'm good, Martin. How are we doing?
I'm all right. You haven't noted my... I've gone full Spurs today, by the way.
Do you know what? Too right as well. I've got to say, as an Arsenal supporter, we're not in the same league as Tottenham. It pains me to say it, but you've got to be realistic and know where we are. And Arsenal are just miles behind Tottenham at the moment.
It's the difference between having a proper manager and Mikel Arteta.
Do you actually think that? Because when Arteta came, I thought he's going to be fantastic. And I said to Alan today, because he's a mad Arsenal fan as well, I said, I'm not calling for Arteta to go or anything like that. He's very early in his days, but we're getting worse. We're getting worse. And it is getting a bit concerning. So,
I mean, the only bright light for you lot would be we got worse at the end of last season under Mourinho. Yeah. Some of the performances, a Bournemouth game that was dire. But he went away and he strategized over the summer and built built a team, built a squad that's better than any that we've had before for the functionality he wants to play.
Yeah, I mean, you hit everybody on the break. But listen, we just have to see. He needs time, so he's got to have the time. So that's all we are. Yeah, but throwing me Tottenham mugs and stuff like that, it's not
So
good.
yeah, no, I'm just gonna try and keep that in shock. That's when I went over to Madrid for the Champions League final a couple of years back.
Yeah, I know.
Never mind. Boxing.
Yes, boxing.
Did you see the weekend?
I did. Watched it all.
What was your favourite fight out of it all?
Just trying to think. It has to be Conor Benn, doesn't it? I'm just trying to think. So what we had with the latte thing against
latte? Jez Smith, Ben Ridings. You had the English.
That was just what we expected. The bookmakers got it wrong again. That was purely an expect. The fight was as you'd expect. The class told over the weight, and we were. I'm
going to start giving out betting tips, Steve. That's going to be my new feature.
Yeah, because we discussed that, and then we had the week before that was your call on
Jack Cullen.
So 2 weeks running, we've called it right, and I mean the Davis Cairns fight was exactly what I said it would be.
I didn't watch that, if I'm honest.
Well, I watched bits of it, but it was time to make a cup of tea. Listen, I'm not being disrespectful to them, but it just wasn't much of a fight. And Babbage Little was, I mean, it's how often Tom Little has become, how can you just keep talking and talking and talking without delivering and still getting paydays? He's brilliant at it.
He's turned into a low-level David Hay, hasn't he? That every time he turns up, it's, the best Tom Little you're ever going to see, and then he gets battered.
He's retired now, hasn't he? He's announced he's retired.
Yeah, which is the right, how many Matchroom prospects can they possibly... Have they run out of prospects for him to fight now? Is that why he's retired?
He went out of making money. And the bottom line was, he's a great talker, but I managed him when he fought in Prize Fighter, and he talked a great game then and wasn't in shape. So he's just a great talker, but, I mean, literally, he's ended a career at 10-9, but how successful has he been in extorting money with a record of 10-9? So hats off to him for that.
Yeah, good on him. It's similar to the Dave Allen scenario, isn't it? He's earned more money out of the sport than his record, his talent, his CV, maybe. Warrants.
Exactly that.
Good on him.
And Fabio Wardley, look, Larty fought his day. Every boxer has their one day in the sun, and Larty's was against Dubois, and that was.
And now he's milking it.
Now it was done. He took that. He gave a good fight. Now he's just taking the money. He's, as we said last week, exactly what we said. He's just the new Kevin Johnson, except he falls over, whereas Kevin Johnson didn't. I mean, it's just. But Fabio, I love Fabio as a fighter, but that proved nothing. That fight proved absolutely nothing.
I'm trying to get Fabio on here. I've sent him a message. We'll get him on another week.
He's great, Fabio. Listen, I think he's one of the most exciting prospects out there. So,
and also, what a great talker he is. Have you seen any of his interviews that he's done? Brilliant, articulate, well thought. Really enjoy listening to him.
I think to be honest, we got everything right last week. I mean, the Conor Benn fight's exactly what we said. They matched him well. They gave him a fight that really wasn't that good, based on the Sean Porter. And they made a great fight for Conor Benn. I love Conor Benn. I don't know. I'm not sure he's ready to go up a level yet, but I think he done what he done, and I think it was every single fight we called it bang on pretty much.
Yeah. If he fought Josh Kelly next fight, who do you think? I know he isn't because of David Avanesian, but
Kelly.
Who would you pick?
Kelly.
Who would you pick if he fought? Say Johnny Garton never retired. Who would you pick there?
Conor Benn.
Who would you pick if he fought Chris Jenkins?
$50-50.
Yeah, that's the one I want to see still. That's the one I want to see.
You've got to remember, they pulled out. Conor Benn pulled out of that fight.
Yeah.
So it's quite realistic without covering all the bullshit and the hype we get from promoters. Conor Benn pulled out of that fight.
Yeah. And
not him, but his team pulled out of the fight.
Yeah. Eddie made various offers to Jenkins, which we're told by Eddie were, good offers. But then
when it went to purse bids, if that's true, you're going to win the purse bid, right?
Yeah, no, because Formella's a far better fight.
Yeah, come on. So let's take the rhetoric out. If you've made such good offers, you're going to walk the purse bid, aren't you?
Yep, I'd agree.
And you pulled out the purse. So you've got to obviously say, I don't judge people. I judge situations by what people do, not what people say. And when it comes to a purse bid, the only reason you pull out of a purse bid is you don't want the fight. There's nothing else. Or you're not prepared to fight on the other person's turf if you lose the purse bid. It's really simple. So you decided, whatever the spin, that he wasn't ready to fight Jenkins, but he was ready to fight Formella, who was supposed to be a better fight. It doesn't make any sense. So I think they pulled him out. I think they pulled him out because they knew it was 50-50. I think perhaps the offers were done previously, but perhaps they've changed their mind and think there's too hard to fight. Somebody in the team. Listen, I've got no criticism because I think they're building Conor Benn perfectly. So I haven't got a problem. But I don't like it when you're trying to appear to make your team's making out you want to fight, but you're not. You're really, in reality, you're avoiding that fight.
Yeah, I said this in the intro that actually the fact that Josh Kelly against Conor Benn next year would be so much bigger now than what it would have been if they'd have made it last year. You have to give them the credit. You know, fans were pushing for it last year, but it's now such a bigger fight that you have to give them credit for not just giving in.
That's why Eddie would pull him out of the Chris Jenkins fight, because it's not a big fight and he's got a chance of losing it.
Yeah.
So I think it's good. I think it's a good move to not fight Chris Jenkins, for me personally. But it's just the spin that you get sometimes, and I'm not just saying that it's Eddie. That's all the promoters. The spin they give you is not reality. It's spinning a version of a narrative that's not actually really true. But he can't really say, I don't want to put him in with Jenkins in case he gets beat. I'm trying to match him with Kelly. So he can't say that. So he'll give the spin. There'll be another spin. And that is, I guess, what promoters do. It's what we're all supposed to do, isn't it? I mean, if I've got a fight and I don't want to fight somebody, I'm going to make out a reason we don't want it. I'm not going to say we don't want it because we think we might. So I think that's what we all do in boxing. So it's not a criticism. It's just a reality. That's
an observation.
Yeah, an observation, yeah.
So this weekend coming, the big one.
There's only one fight. There's only one fight to talk about, isn't there, on the card?
Yeah, right? Mike Tyson, Roy Jones Jr.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah. We'll start with Dubois, Joyce. What a fight! Brilliant. Credit Frank Warren. Credit, Martin Bowers. Credit Sam Jones. Credit Joe Joyce, Daniel Dubois. Everybody involved in it for getting that fight on. Getting it on domestic TV. Credit BT. Yeah, all of them.
Listen, the fact that the undercard is shite, it's all one stuff. Doesn't matter because it's all about the main event. The main event justifies that card. It doesn't matter about the rest of the card. The rest of the card is foreigners against, who have got bad records, got good records, but they're not very good.
I tweeted a while back. I'd rather there wasn't an undercard. I'd rather they put the fight on at 10 o'clock. Start the broadcast at 8:30 and just have an hour of proper build-up, proper narrative.
I agree.
I'd far rather that than see some knockover jobs for Jack Cattrall and
Hamza and Jack Massey and Louis. It's David Adelaide and it's up to you. You can watch a bit. We can watch a bit of boxing on a Saturday night, but there's only one fight to watch.
Yeah, I would rather they got, all the big guns out for BT and gave us a proper build-up, a proper narrative around what the fight is, why it's important, and make it an occasion, make it a special fight. Far rather that than watching one-sided undercards. But I'm not complaining.
Because what we're getting is a great top of the bill. And I've got a view on it. I know in a minute, I think we've got around about 6 or 7 of boxing's experts, including Gary Logan, Steve Lillis, and
Neil Parry, Liam Conroy,
Stuart Scott, good up-and-coming trainer, all giving their views on it.
Yes, big fight Saturday night. Daniel Dubois, Joseph Joyce, great clash. I've got Daniel winning this fight. I just think he's got the better fundamentals. He's got an underestimated jab. We've only seen it that one time when he needed it against Nathan Gorman, and he used it really well to dismantle Gorman. And I just don't think Joseph will make him miss enough. And that's the most important thing. Joseph has got the fitness, he's got amazing conditioning, but I just don't think he's got the ability to make Daniel miss. And I think anything that Daniel hits for a duration of time, he's going to knock it out, you know. And I just think at this stage of his career, Daniel's really ready to take the next step up. You know, if anybody's got a style to give him trouble, it's going to be Joseph, because his fitness is amazing. But you know, fitness can only go so far against good fundamentals, footwork, speed and power, and accuracy as well. And Daniel carries all of those really well. I'm trying to find a way that Joseph wins it whereby he may come through some early damage and his fitness starts telling and he starts overwhelming Daniel. But I mean, Daniel punches well at long range and he punches well to the body, and I think Joseph can be caught quite well at both those ranges, you know. Daniel's already showed us that he can throw a really good left hook to the body, and Joseph's shown us that he can be hurt there as well. So, you know, if I'm a betting man, I have to go for Dubois. I just think it's his time now.
Dubois versus Joyce. What a fight. I don't think I've met one person who cannot wait for Saturday night. So many different repercussions to it. Everything, you know, if Joyce loses, how does he come back from this loss? He'll very much is in danger of becoming a B-side fighter. Daniel Dubois, you'd expect him that he could build up and get back in the picture again. But again, does a heavy loss hurt his confidence? And there's other repercussions for someone like Frank Warren. All his eggs, not all his eggs, but many of his boxing eggs, shall we say, are in the Daniel Dubois basket. It makes it fascinating, and I'm sure he'd like to get one over on Sam Jones. I think you only have to look at the BT stuff that's been online, and from there, the face-off between the fighters last week to see what Frank thinks of Sam these days. But no, look, on to the fight. Absolutely brilliant. Can't lavish enough praise on both fighters for taking it. I think a lot depends on Joyce has got to take away Dubois' jab very, very early. Any fighters I speak to, they speak about who sparred with him, you know, guys like Jay McFarlane, Tom Little, who's fought him. They talk about Dubois' jab being like a straight right hand. It's that powerful, but his right hand isn't as concussive, particularly at mid-range. You know, we know what Joe's all about. We know what he's going to do. And I think a lot of this fight comes down to the diligence of the trainers. I think Ray Ball and Martin Bowers, who trained Daniel, will have left no stone unturned. Now, I'm not sure it's been as comfortable in the Joyce camp. There's all sorts of speculation that Ismail Salas was in camp. He's gone back to America where he's been photographed with fighters, and he's coming back this week. That's no way to prepare for what is the biggest fight of Joe's professional career. You know, the most important fight, since he turned professional after his Olympic silver medal. I've just got to go for Dubois. Ever since Joe turned professional, and anyone would tell you this, I've spoke to about him, I've had this impression that he'd always be in a really, really good fight one night and ultimately come unstuck. I just think, you know, we know he's got a great chin, but it's like an oak tree. If you chop at an oak tree for so long, it eventually goes over. And I think, you know, he'll go over, but eventually be stopped on his feet around 8 or 9 rounds. So it's Daniel Dubois for me. And Dubois does a number. How big does Dubois become in the heavyweight landscape? You know, anyone's guess, but he's going to be enormous.
Hi guys, Sean Els here. Just going to give my prediction for Dubois versus Joyce this weekend. They're quite evenly matched, height, power, fitness. So I think the difference will be ring IQ. So I think I'm going to lean towards a Dubois stoppage late rounds between 9 and 12.
Hello everyone, Neil Parry here to give my prediction for the Daniel Dubois Joe Joyce fight that's happening this weekend. It's one of the best fights to happen this year from a domestic point of view, and it's one I'm really looking forward to watching. I think it's a battle between youth and experience, and in my opinion experience will come through in this fight. I believe that Joe Joyce's amateur pedigree and the fact that he's still fresh as a pro will shine in this fight, and I believe that he will come through and stop Daniel Dubois in the 9th round. Hope everyone's well, stay safe, see you all soon.
Okay, so this weekend sees the massive contest between Daniel Dubois and Joe Joyce. The first thing you have to say about the fight is absolute massive credit to both them and to Warren for putting it on. Neither of them had to take this risk, neither of them needed to do this fight at this stage in their careers, so for two undefeated prospects to go at it like this is just massive for the sport of boxing. So very, very big credit to both of them. How I see the fight going, I'm one of the very few people that fancies Joyce. I genuinely believe that his experience in GB, the fact that in the pro ranks he's had by far and away the tougher opposition, I think it stands him in good stead for this fight. Obviously Daniel Dubois is fantastic, he can punch, he can box, he can move, and it may be that he just lands that big right hand and Joe Joyce gets out of there, but I don't see it. Joe Joyce has got a very, very good chin, terrific engine, never stops punching. So long as he can hold that Dubois right hand, which there's nothing that I've seen so far that makes me think he won't, I've got a feeling that he could take him deep, and if he takes him deep, he could well drown him. So my prediction for the weekend would be Joe Joyce via late TKO win. I fancy him to get the stoppage somewhere around about 8, 9, 10.
So the Goodwin boys have asked me to do my prediction for Dubois v Joyce. I personally think Daniel Dubois is a much better boxer, and I think he outboxes Joyce and wins on points. Possibly a stoppage, but I think he wins it fairly comfortably on points. I think Joyce is just, he's never really got much better than what he was. He's just big and strong, but he's also very slow and very predictable and very one-dimensional. So for me, I think convincing points with Dubois, maybe a stoppage, but I could see it going a distance, to be fair. But we'll see how it goes. It's been an exciting fight either way.
But before I give mine, give me yours.
Joe Joyce wins. Joe Joyce wins either mid-round stoppage or points, is my view.
Well, I've had a bet on the fight.
See, I'm surprised by that because you don't bet unless there's an obvious anomaly somewhere.
I think there is.
So what have you gone with?
Right, this is my view. So everything with me is about the pricing. Like Jez Smith last week was ridiculous. He was an odds-on chance. So looking at the book, for me, I price it at around 4 to 7 Dubois, 13 to 8 Joyce. They are the prices that I would expect to see. It would be Dubois' favourite because he's the hype job, and Joyce the outsider because he's not the Warren fighter and everything else. So if I look at it, if they were both even money, I'd probably lean towards Dubois because I think he's a younger, fresher man, and Joyce does get hit a lot. But I got Joyce yesterday at 7 to 2 on Betfair. 7 to 2, Joe Joyce.
Right.
Now that's wrong. That's an anomaly. Win, lose or draw, Joe Joyce is not a 3.5 to 1 chance. So it's about, and therefore I think there's an anomaly. There's too much hype over Dubois. Now Dubois might win, but it's still a good bet at 7 to 2. He's gone down now to 3 to 1. He's slightly above 3 to 1 on Betfair. But to me, you see that if Dubois can't knock him out, Joyce will keep coming. And Dubois has shown a little bit, a very small smidgen of vulnerability under pressure when Latte put him under pressure. And there's been nobody else capable of putting Dubois under any pressure at all. Now, Dubois might come out and blast Joe Joyce because Joe Joyce has been knocked down in the amateurs. He can be hit and he can be hurt. But he is not a 7 to 2 chance. No way, Jose. If you back Joe Joyce and he wins probably 2 times, he probably wins 2 times out of every 5 or something like that. The point is, if you're backing him to 1 time, 1 in every 3.5, you're going to win money. And that to me is the bet. The bet's Joe Joyce because of the value. And that's really my SP on it. So we've had a few quid on that. So the price is too big.
Yeah. Do you think he wins?
I think it's a really hard fight to call. And I actually don't have a firm opinion on it. I just have an opinion that his chance is better than the odds. So it's very easy to say who's I think the most likely winner is Dubois, but that's not what we're talking about when we want to make money. It's not about, I can give you Jack Catterall or Jack Massey to beat Farid. He's 20. He's going to win, but his odds are 1 to 20, and this probably should be 1 to 50. But there's a point here about what I think. Most people can say what they think is going to win, but the idea of making money, which is what I'm interested in betting, is not predicting who's going to win. It's about betting at the right odds. Jez Smith last week. Terry Harper was the wrong odds the week before, though she was on. I don't care if it's odds on, odds against. If you're betting at bigger odds than the odds should be, you can't but avoid to win money on boxing. And out of betting, I make a lot of money out of boxing. So it's purely a situation, the price is wrong. And if we pushed him out to 4 to 1, I'd bet more.
Yeah. So win or lose, ultimately you're playing the longer game than it being about this Saturday.
Correct.
If you find that same opportunity again, the 1 in 4, 1 in 3 that works would be the one that makes the profit on it.
That's basically the bottom line. It's all about and that's when I used to work on Sky Sports as their betting analyst on Saturday morning, their racing tipping show. Same principle in horse racing. We made money out of that as well. It's all about understanding the probabilities and betting accordingly. And it's the same in boxing, especially when we get a lot of our small hall people. And I will cover some. Dwayne Sinclair was 4 to 7 on to beat Anthony Fox. He was 2 to 1 against. It was ridiculous. It was money. It was the wrong way round. Anthony Fox at 2 to 1 was the bet. You get Linus Udofia was value originally before he got backed in. There are big anomalies in boxing that bookmakers make errors on because they go with the hype. One coming up, I think, to look at closely is the fight coming up on a Matchroom show, totally off the subject here, Kieran Conway. I think he gets beat. And I'm waiting to see how the bookies price it because I'm thinking they might put Conway in odds on favourite. If they do, it's a jump on it because they've got the fight, but he doesn't beat this guy unless this guy has a mare. There's no comparison in quality of the two fighters. So unless there's something wrong with him or he's come over just to take the money and run, which we'll find out a bit more closer to the time. They're the sort of things I look at. Where do I think the bookmakers are going to make an error and price up the wrong favourite? The Jez Smith was ridiculous. It was the wrong way around, totally the wrong way around.
Yep.
So anyway, but I think, cutting the betting aside, it's both boxers deserve all the credit. It's a fantastic fight. I'm really looking forward to it. And credit to everybody involved for putting this on because it's a proper fight.
Yeah, I can't wait for it. I think it's one of the. I can't remember a fight I've looked forward to sitting down on a Saturday night and just watching for a long time. To be honest.
Well, me too. Because me too. I mean, I like Conor Benn from last week, Martin, and you know that. But it wasn't a proper fight. The girl fights the week before. There weren't any proper fights there of quality. So we're watching these Saturday night fights, but this is a proper fight. In my opinion, it's a far better watch than Joshua against Pulev, right? 25 quid. I'd rather watch Dubois Joyce because I think it's just a great fight to watch.
Yeah, agree. So Saturday night, BT Sports.
Away we go. And then on Sunday morning, I'll go on the internet and watch what happened with Jones and Tyson because it's going to be a very odd. I presume that'll be very odd. But we'll
That'd
see.
be a strange tonight. Did you see the rules about that today?
No.
So there are no official judges, but there will be 3 celebrity judges remotely judging it.
Mm-hmm.
However, there are no winners or losers. There will be a WBC belt for both. There can't be knockouts. It's madness.
They're not going to hurt each other. They're just going to carry each other through the rounds and get a load of money.
I don't know. I wouldn't be confident if I was Roy Jones going in there that Mike Tyson isn't going to try and take my head off for 3 minutes. Well, they're 2-minute rounds, but I'm not sure I could go in there confident that's going to happen.
Well, very
as soon as that bell goes.
But I wouldn't pay for it though. I wouldn't pay for that.
No. But as soon as that bell goes, there's going to be old Pavlov's dog syndrome with Tyson, isn't it? He's going to sit it quick and he'll be gone.
He probably thinks he's got 2 or 3 minutes in him, so he might as well just try and offload and knock him out.
Yeah. I don't think I'd fancy being Jones in that scenario. But Yeah, that aside, let's have a look at the questions that came in, because we've got quite a few this week. We're going to start with something that's a slightly broader topic around, vaccinations and things. So from Gary Coniam on Twitter. Does the news regarding fans being allowed back into venues mean that we will soon see some small hall shows, desperately needed for the fighters, but also for us as fans?
No. Let me explain why. At the moment, you've got two issues to deal with on the small hall scene. You have the government, the vaccinations, the rules, and then we've got the board. So the fact they will now allow 600 people into York Hall means that you can't make it pay with 600 people in York Hall. It's impossible to do it. But the other problem is we are still under the board regulations of COVID testing everybody, locking every participant and official in hotels. You can't do that as a small hall promoter. So the first thing that has to happen before anything else is that all has to stop. We have to stop all the testing being done. Now that's nowhere near being closed. And in fact, the board have written to promoters saying, January and February, please don't do any shows or make the dates, because we think that the doctors are concerned they won't be able to attend shows because they believe that after Christmas, the outbreak and the virus will run out of control and they will be needed in hospitals. So that does sound very promising, that the board is saying to all promoters, don't think about running shows in January and February because our doctors, we're not even sure we wouldn't be able to cover 2 shows on one night. So in other words, Eddie and Frank do not go on the same night because we won't be able to service both shows. That's not telling you that they're going to relax the rules and boxing's coming back. So no, it's not. So you've got to let's look at what you need for small hall boxing. You need the government to say you can fill up venues, and the board have to say we're happy with you to do that without spending £10,000 to £12,000 on testing. The only way you're going to get that done is with mass vaccinations, where people are vaccinated, and maybe they'll even have to prove they're vaccinated to get into arenas. That is possible as well. Like Qantas, the airline, have said, if you're not vaccinated, you're not getting on our planes. So that may happen as well. And we're going to go through a period of time where we're going to have to understand the rules. But they're talking about getting the most of the vulnerable people vaccinated by Easter. Now, will the board then say, once the majority of people are vaccinated by Easter, we're now going to remove the COVID restrictions and we're going to allow people into venues? Are they going to allow that? I don't know. I doubt it. But if they do allow that, then you're probably talking about May as the first possible opportunity to have a show. What chance is there of boxing in May or June? Probably 50-50 at best. If not, September will be the restart date. Because you might, if the board do relax, they do relax their restrictions on COVID and the testing regimes, then you might be able to do a dinner show before then, or a small show in a venue where you can have half the people with a meal. That's possible. But the board have to relax their rules first. So we're dependent on two things here. Number one, that the government is efficient and effective in the distribution of vaccines. Don't hold your breath. Number two, that the boxing board also feels so confident in it all now that they removed the testing protocol for staging shows. Without both of them being done, small hall boxing cannot resume, despite the headlines we've seen today. And I can't give anybody a firm timescale for that because it's outside my control. It depends on the government, depends on the board. Nobody out there would be guessing. We can what we're doing is preliminary, going to look at dates in May and June, but without, we'll start to do that, but we can't be sure they're going to happen just yet. And we'll have to make a decision on those shows by March. If by March they haven't relaxed any of the rules and we're not sure, we won't be able to run May. And if we don't run May, you've then got the Euros and everything else in June, July. So that's out till September. Then you're just going to come in September full guns blazing. So we don't really know, but you may be able to do a dinner show in June or something like that. But the full-scale York Hall, it's touch and go between if June is possible, and a lot we'll know about by February, March to see how quickly these vaccines get rolled out. But judging on their test and trace system, you wouldn't have a lot of faith, would you?
No. So yeah, I mean, my gut feeling on it is probably not May, but we'll see in time, won't we? We'll see in due course. I was only there on Twitter. Last year, you hinted at an outside boxing event. Is this something you will now push for even more now that fans are allowed to attend outside sporting events? Good luck doing that in the middle of winter.
Yeah, so the bottom line is it's still something we'll look at, but you're not going to be doing that. As I've just mentioned, it still depends on exactly the same as before. People have taken this news as boxing is back. It's nonsense. You're reading a headline without reading the detail. Read the detail of what's really going on. It isn't back. We're nowhere near back. We're no further forward than we were last week. We've still got the protocols, the £10,000–20,000 of costs to stage a show in addition to what we'd normally pay. Until that's removed, we can't stage. Indoor, outdoor, on the South Pole, on the moon, anywhere you want to do it. In my back garden, can't be done for small hall shows. So it depends on when the vaccines are out, when people are vaccinated, and the board can relax their rules. And that's what we're making.
Makes sense.
But next summer, we may do something, but it would have to be towards the back end of the summer, September time, if we did an outdoor event. Because we're not going to compete with the Euros, that's for sure.
Yeah, that'd be brilliant. I know there are various venues you've looked at in the past on potential ones, so at least you've done the scouting missions already.
Exactly.
Oliver McManus on Twitter. I'm sure there are lots of Bunts-related comments that will drift in. But genuinely, what is Steve's view on the nerds, wannabes pontificating at small hall level? Is it a case of the more coverage, the better, or are there some lines that need to be drawn? So for reference, for relevance, this is where Steve Bunce had called me a nerd and a wannabe because I wrote something in my spare time as a hobby. We'll come on that. Fuck it, whatever. So what are your views on, what were labelled as nerds, wannabes that may turn up to small hall shows? So those that aren't perhaps boxing news, although Steve Bunce, if you're watching this, I've written for boxing news, so yeah, there you go. What are your views on those that want to come along and cover the sport at a small hall level that won't necessarily be doing it for the known websites, the known magazines?
Let's put it this way. It's okay, Steve Bunce saying that sort of stuff. He's paid.
True.
He's going to whoever's going to pay him to. But listen, that's not an insult to him because I'd do the same in his position, right? So there's no criticism. There's a lot of them out there. They go to whoever's going to pay them the money.
David Hayes is bad.
So yeah, exactly the same. But and you'll push the narrative that you're pushing, right? So you're paid. So don't deserve anything from boxing for that, because if you don't do it, somebody else will. So you're doing a job that loads of people want to do. The people that cover small halls, they do it at their own time with no money. They generate publicity. They probably able to generate indirectly sponsorship for the fighters on small hall level. They are doing much more for boxing than David Hay would be sitting on BT Sport behind a microphone or Steve Bunce is doing. I'm afraid that's being totally honest. And I think it's disrespectful and arrogant to take that view against people who are the lifeblood of the sport.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I've done about 130 interviews and typed up with boxers, your boxers, mainstream boxers, but the majority being those below the A level of boxing, because that's what my interest is in. Have I had them written and checked over by an editor? No, because it's a website that I run myself for the passion of trying to help these lads progress their career.
Exactly that.
Do I get paid for it? No. Have I ever asked you for a penny for anything that I do, of doing this, of writing bits for Goodwin Boxing, of writing things about your boxers, of anything like that? No, because that's not what my interest is. I have an income outside of boxing. Boxing is my hobby. And the only way I can put it is, does Steve Bunce go down the driving range and start fucking mugging off blokes that are hitting 4-irons down the driving range, hitting, you know, a 3-wood, a driver down the driving range, and they're not ever going to win a Masters? Does he stand there going, "Hey, you're rubbish at that"? Well, that's not their job. That's their hobby, as is my hobby. Am I good at it? Am I bad at it? I don't really care, to be quite honest. My interest is in trying to benefit others through doing it.
Exactly that.
Not benefit myself.
Correct. And the annoyance thing is with people that do that is they don't, it's not covered genuinely, in my opinion, a lot of the time. A lot of the people that do this, they cover with a narrative, because if they don't cover it the way that they're supposed to, they don't get paid. So they're paid to follow a certain route. I mean, have you heard certain people on, we could go with David Hay. I mean, have you ever seen him when he's working on a BT show ever really criticise a BT boxer? No. They're all wonderful. Yeah. They're all going to be the next best thing. They've all got the most amazing talent, even when they haven't. And it's okay for people at home that don't know what they're watching. But when you know what you're watching, it's a bit irritating. But you know that they're doing that because they have to push the narrative of the fighters they're watching. And it also happens on Sky as well, right? So we're not going to say that it happens with a lot of them. And it does pee me off. Now, okay, I understand that. But those people that are getting paid to do that and spin the bullshit don't come out and criticise others who are working at the grounds, who are doing it voluntarily, who are doing a fantastic job and helping the sport, because those people can't be replaced. People like those can be replaced. You could replace David Hay with Ricky Hatton. You could replace Steve Bunce with plenty of people. And yeah. And I remember I was saying to you before, when Steve Bunce used to be on Setanta, I used to really enjoy his shows on Setanta. Personally, I don't enjoy how he covers it now. I don't think he's not the same. He's not as good. But that's just my opinion. But he's still, you know, he's paid to do a job. I don't like it though when these people want to criticise other people, because they're getting paid to cover something, and that's what they're doing. Steve Bunce was out of work for a while, and he was running around with all the hardcore boxing fans trying to get them to promote him. Now, 1 minute, you know, it's just hypocritical, and it's rude, and it's arrogant, and it's not acceptable. That's the end of it.
Yeah, you know, citing myself, there's the likes of Oliver, the likes of Sam O'Reilly, the likes of Craig Scott, that have been, you know, to all your shows over the years, sat and watched from the moment the doors open. And I know Steve's done that in the past. Steve's done it unpaid. Steve's done far more in the sport than I could ever do nor wish to do, because it's not my job. It's my interest, my hobby, something that I have a passion for. And I think that's where there's a problem that needs bridging between those that, you know, make a living out of it and assume everyone else wants to make a living. I don't fucking ever want to take a penny out of boxing. It's not in my interest to do so. I would rather make sure that money goes back in, you know, anything that's generated out of it would go back into, you know, the ecosystem of boxing rather than into my pocket.
Just stop slating people off who are doing their best in the sport. It's just wrong. That's the end of it. But there we go.
I can't promise to do that myself.
No, but the thing is, you're different. You're like the Piers Morgan of boxing, right? You're going for the top guys and holding them to account, and that's what you do. Whether you like Piers Morgan or you don't like Piers Morgan, and he's a Marmite character, he holds those who spout bullshit to account. And you do the same, really. So there you go. You're the Piers Morgan of boxing.
I'll tell you that. From my friend Riku, Lead Right on Twitter. Steve, looking forward to the episode. What's your take on boxing not receiving funding? So that's in reference to the government handing out £300 million.
I didn't think for 1 second that boxing would get funding. When your boxing is so fragmented, and you've got Bieber running against the board. Who's in charge here? You've got two promoters that hold the whole country, run the whole shebang with TV contracts. So you've got Warren and Hearn really have got and MTK have got their money, but are you really going to fund MTK, Warren and Hearn? Not really, because where's the money going to go? If you give it to the board, what are the board going to do with it? Wouldn't Bieber come along and go, hold on, we want to share this? What about the unlicensed boxers? Do they want to share it? The amateur boxers, do they want to share it? Who's really in charge? None of them are government, they're all self-regulating bodies. It's really hard to give. Who do you give the money to? I didn't think they would. Boxing has shown itself, in my opinion, not to have a consistent body. And you've also got to remember that when you had the Irish government say what they said a few months ago about the state of boxing, and they were contacting the British government about concerns about boxing as a whole, it was never going to happen, was it?
No, and I go back to the article I wrote that Steve Bunce took such objection to. How can a sport with no overall governance petition a government effectively and represent all 750,000 participants in the UK? You can't. You can't, because you've got Boxing England, you've got the Alliance, you've got GB. That's the three amateur bodies. And you've got Bieber, you've got the British Boxing Board of Control. That's the professional ones. Then you've got the ones that sit in that grey area of unlicensed.
Yeah.
Not one person, not one body represents all those people in one go. So how can you put it all together to petition government? So I'd ask two questions. How do you do that? Actually, I'll ask three questions. How do you do that? If the sport got given £1 million, if the government said, right, here's £1 million, who would get it? I haven't got a clue. And then the third question is, did boxing make representation to the government when this money was getting divvied out? I'm not convinced, because now you're seeing a retrospective action from Hearn. I'm not having a pop at Hearn, he's doing something. But you're seeing action now from Hearn saying, let's get some money to boxing. But has boxing made representation through the process? Because I know people from the Badminton England set up, and I know what their petitioning was through government. And I know how they got their money, their £3 million. So don't boil it down. The likes of Steve Bunce and the likes of every other person on Twitter that seems outraged about it, saying, oh, it's only because horse racing makes more money than boxing through gambling. Don't boil it down to such a simple narrative without coming back with, on that premise, you're telling me badminton makes more money than boxing through gambling. You're telling me ice hockey makes more money than boxing through gambling because they got funded, yet boxing didn't. So you can't use that argument. You can't. So again, go back to the question, who made representation? Did anyone make representation? Where would you put the money if it landed tomorrow?
I would say that the government, judging by what happened a few months ago, the government must be thinking what are boxing in when you've got Parliament saying that boxing's in disarray, an Irish government, whether it's true or not, it doesn't matter whether there's any truth in it, I don't want to get involved in that. But when you've got the issue where you've got that sort of thing saying that boxing isn't being run properly, and it's discussed in a Parliament, it just doesn't give credence to a sport to receive government funding, does it? I never thought for 1 second they'd get any, boxing would get any. Never thought they would.
And it's not to say it doesn't deserve it. It's not to say that it shouldn't get money, because we know, that 900 amateur clubs in the country that are all suffering right now, are all reliant upon the goodwill of individuals to keep them running, that there probably won't be 900 coming out the back of this, and there will be...
That's where the money, by the way, that's where the money should have gone.
Yes.
That's where if there was money, it should have gone to the amateur clubs to keep the clubs running for the kids. But the government probably wouldn't have trusted that the money would have got there.
How would it get there?
Yeah, exactly that.
How would it get there? It would be like kids arguing over the will of their parents. It would be a horrible scene.
I agree.
So yeah, I feel for every amateur club out there. I feel for the likes of Sam Smith with her club up in Leeds. Keeping those doors open when all this ends is going to be such a rough ride.
That's where the money should go, but there is no regulator that controls it all, and without that, you're not going to get money, especially when the sport is historically, clouded in. And you go back to the old days of the 80s. Always boxing was involved with gangsterism and dodgy dealings and all that sort of stuff. And you go back historically, it's known for that. Badminton isn't known for that. So you've got to remember that boxing doesn't have the greatest history of being, of the right people being involved. And that goes back to the 70s, 80s, and whatever else you're dealing with in here, in America, and everywhere else. So it's not the type of sport where you throw, I think that, and there's no governance. And until, if the government had its own body in charge of everything, then you might have got some money. But remember, the board is self-regulated. The Boxing Board of Control is an individual company. It's not regulated by the government. They're self-regulated. Yeah. People don't realize this. And then Rio's got his BIBA, which I can criticise that as well. But which I would criticise that because of the way that's run. But why can't he have the money? Because he's self-regulating. As the same as the board. Who can decide that the board can have it and Rio can't have it?
And the board is a private company.
Yeah.
It's a company. It's listed on company. It's not a charity. It's a company with money and cash assets. If you check through their last financial statements, how would that look from the government to be handing money to a private company with cash assets to keep the sport afloat?
There's so many issues. There's all of the things we've discussed. It just means that you're just not going to get the money. And I know everybody's tweeting everyone. I'm just thinking, but you're not going to get it. The only way of doing it is if the government then said somebody who's going to be proportioned to look around all the amateur clubs in the UK and see what they do and give them an individual, and they could all put a claim in for money, and somebody would actually take the chance of actually investigating them. But if you gave it to amateur clubs, you'd have the professional promoters or professional people going, we want our cut, we want our cut. So they just thought, sod you, we just won't give you anything.
Yeah. Final point as well, it's not actually free money, it's a loan that has to be paid back.
Correct.
And our amateur club's in a position right now to take money, and I'd imagine it's a relatively low interest loan.
Yeah, it's very low interest. But they've still got to pay it back, right? But then some of these bounce back loans that they're doing to companies they're going into liquidation. Some of these companies are giving bounce back loans to. Some of their policies are so flawed. But yeah, I mean, in reality, boxing is not demoted a clean enough sport with enough governance over the whole sport as a whole from one organisation. It's never going to get money.
Yeah. And in the same week, you've got Hearn announcing it's 25 quid for Joshua Pulev.
I'll tell you what I did think. I thought the Rob Tebber thing with Adam Smith was very good.
Yeah, very good. And you have to give credit to Adam Smith as well for that, in that he took every question and every repeated question from Rob Tebber, but Rob Tebber pushed it and pushed it and pushed it. You may not agree with Adam Smith, and I don't, but at least he was there to take the question.
Yeah, and I mean, look, it is what it is. You're going to charge, and I understand. Remember when we went to 25, it was because that fight was as big as a Muhammad Ali fight or some nonsense like that. And listen, Joshua Pulev is not that big. The thing is, if we didn't do that, he wouldn't fight. Well, then don't fight. Then don't fight and take less money. If he won't take less money and you could do it at the right price, then okay, don't fight then.
Yeah, Fury's not fighting.
Correct. Well, I think he's got litigation against him, hasn't he? I think that's what you read. I don't know whether he's not fighting because of the money or fighting because it's a legal action. I don't really know the inside of that. But yeah, the bottom line is, if it doesn't matter financially, then don't do it. But the Joshua bandwagon is all around the money, isn't it? And I understand that. But if he couldn't do it, then don't fight. But then on the other hand, charge £55 if you want, or £65 if you want. If people want to pay it, they'll pay it. I'm sure people will pay £25 and they'll get enough subscribers, and then it's the right thing to do. Because people, as we've discussed before, if people pay for stuff and they vote to spend the money, then you encourage it to happen, and that's fine. And if they want to put the pay-per-view up to £40, put it up. It's none of us to criticise. If people want to keep buying it, then your price will keep rising. That's okay. If you don't buy it, the price won't keep rising. So there's I don't actually see a point in complaining about it, to be honest. I mean, I won't pay £25 for it. But the bottom line is, for those that will, good luck to them. but you'll be paying 25. Everything will go up in price. And
Do you know what would make more sense this week would have been, say, it's £27 and £2 from every purchase will feed into amateur boxing and we'll give it to Boxing England.
No, what they should have done is made it 25 quid and given the 5 quid to amateur boxing.
Yeah,
because then you'd have paid it.
Yeah.
They should have charged 27. They should have charged 25. And Joshua should have said, I am loaded. I've got a pile of money. I'm going to put the money back to amateur boxing.
Yeah, the whole system that made me as a boxer and got me to Rio, etc. But
listen, it's how it is. Each to their own. Fans carry on. Keep paying. Keep it going. If you think it's worth it, that's great. And if you think it's worth £30 next year, keep paying. It's great. You know, whatever you want to do. Because it's. I don't blame them for charging £25. I don't.
No.
So I'm not blaming Eddie Hearn. I'm not blaming Joshua. Because people are going to buy it. And if the people buy it at 25, they'll pay 30 next year. Keep pushing the price up while people will keep paying for this.
Yep.
It's called business. It's called supply and demand. They will drop the price when the demand's not there. And if the demand keeps being there, the prices will keep increasing.
Simple economics.
Yeah.
A question from Yestin on Twitter. If the UK government does a U-turn and decides to give money for boxing during the pandemic, what is the best way to distribute the money? So we've kind of gone through that. Should top promoters get a slice of it?
No.
Agreed. I feel like we've covered that subject.
Oh, by the way, should any promoter get a slice of it? No. Should we get a slice of it? No.
Nope.
Because at the end of the day, yes, it's not good. There's no, but no, absolutely not. Give it to the amateur clubs that are lifeblood of the sport. But you're not going to get it anyway. So that's what it is.
Andrew Pyra on Twitter. Last year, Steve mentioned he was writing a letter to the board raising concerns about unauthorised managers. Did he ever get a response?
No.
Not even like an acknowledgement?
Cole Greaves done I think he's done it on behalf of everybody, but nothing happened.
Is that anything that would then be picked up again?
To be honest, I think we sent it. I think the time we mentioned it was shortly before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I don't think they care. I think there's a few things that I can't say stuff on here because I can't, but they know. Some of the people know, and I think it's just how it is. I don't think it's right. It happened in football agents as well. There was a football agent that operated, Eric Hall, who died recently. I used to think he was a good character. Remember Eric Hall?
Monster.
Right? Now, when he built up as a football agent, he did it without a license for a long period of time. He was an illegal football agent. So this has carried on in many, many, many areas. And the thing is, if you're allowed to do it and the regulator doesn't stop you, you can't blame the people for doing it. But it does totally and utterly. I mean, why do I need a manager's license? Why can't I just become an advisor? Why can't I? And then I'll go around stealing fighters, right? And the board can do nothing about it because I'm only an advisor. And therefore,
you'd be better off handing your license in.
Yeah, I would be better off. I would be better off handing my license in, acting as an advisor, and being an absolute dickhead and arsehole to everybody, and know that nobody can do anything against me.
Yeah, but it comes back to fuck it. My license is up for renewal soon anyway. I'm not going to really renew it in the near future. It's not a serious sport. It's an unserious sport. There is no governance. You can't have governance when people can work outside of the frameworks you create. That is that in a nutshell is why the sport gets fuck all money out of the government. Because it's not serious.
I mean, you did even have the same thing before with Tyson Fury, though, didn't you? Because Eddie Hearn announced that Tyson Fury had an unlicensed manager, and then that manager pulled away, or the advisor manager pulled away. It's not a good look. And listen, I've said the same thing all the time. The Boxing Board of Control, generally on most occasions, are trying to do the best thing that they can do, but in some areas, I don't understand why they don't do something about it.
Yeah, it's true actually. When you go back to that announcement about the advisor who had cut the deal between Joshua and Fury, and thank you very much, And when you know who that advisor is and you know what's publicly available and said about them, to then complain the sport doesn't get, you know, it eats itself from the inside sometimes.
And that's the problem, whether or not, and this is no criticism of anybody because nobody's been convicted of anything, but I'm just saying that the whole thing looks as if the sport's not governed properly, so you're not going to get the money.
Yeah. As I say, the pay-per-view aspect, or these things, the sport is.
You've got to remember, in America, they say that boxing, you have to pay more money for a fight in America. You don't pay Sky $150 a month for some people who've got multi-rooms, or £100 a month. We don't have those fees going out all the time from all the households that pay for this. Remember, the product is paid for by high subscription fees.
Yep.
This is the point here. This is the point. Whereas in America, you don't have it like that. So yes, they charge you for the events, but you don't get these high subscription fees every month. So you then choose what you pay for. Got no problem with that. But not when you know. But anyway, that's why I will only pay for something that I think is extra worthy.
Agree. Joel Archard on Twitter. Steve, speaking of this, do you think Sky Boxing will ever come away from giving one promoter an exclusive deal on their platform?
No, because I think Eddie Hearn has improved Sky Boxing from the product that it was. And I think he's taken boxing up another level, and I think he's done a great job. So on the whole, that's my view. If you gave it to 3 different promoters or 4 different promoters, who are you going to give it to? Well, you might give it to MTK, you might give it to Steve Wood, you might give us a little go, you might give it to Steffi Ball, you might give it to Dennis Hobson. But then you've got the problem is all the fighters are kept independent. They're not fighting each other. Who's got overall control of it? You end up with shows all one-sided. Well, you can argue you get some of that anyway. So I don't think they'll ever go back to that. And I think, and I've got to say, I think Eddie does a good job overall. So I think within the remit, we can argue about certain things, but I think he does a good job. So I don't think they ever will, and I don't think they'll ever, unless Matchroom decide to walk. They've got it forever.
Or unless DAZN has an impact when that sets up, and if they strike a relationship with Hearn in the UK,
and then Hearn has to. Then if Hearn goes and signs with DAZN rather than Sky, then Sky have got a big. But then Hearn would then take. Did they take Frank Warren back? Does Frank Warren stay with BT? Do they get? But I can't see them going to loads of various promoters because, and also I think the quality of shows generally isn't very good out there, and I don't think it would be. Look, if I was given a Sky contract, right? Let's give you an example. Could I do a really good job with that? Yes, I think we could. Will they give it to me? No chance. So, do I believe there are many people that could do it properly? No. Because it's not just about getting the Sky contract. You've got to be smart. You've got to be business minded. You've got to understand that you've got to be able to have a lot of skill set to be able to do that. And Eddie Hearn, remember, they're an accountancy family. They're based with a business ethic first, and sports came second, and then boxing added on. It's totally different. You need to have that. So would we be able to do that as our unit? Yes, we could do that. We could easily do that. But there's no chance. We're not a name. We haven't got the thing. I mean, we know who gets the contracts from TV, but these people, in my opinion, we could do a far better job with the money than they could. But it's never going to happen. So that's just how it is.
Final question was from just after we'd recorded last week. So Lee at Last Start on Twitter. What do you think of Eddie saying Conor Benn is now world class, and who do you think would win if he boxed Florian Marku?
Right, he's not world class yet. He's not world class. I like Florian, but I think Conor Benn wins.
What a fight it'd be.
What I think would be an amazing fight. And listen, Florian would have a chance of winning. However, I think that the first fighter that can put Florian on the back foot and move will give him all sorts of trouble. And I think Conor could put him on the back foot. Florian is a brilliant come-forward fighter. He's got power in both hands. He's a tough man. But he will be in trouble with certain types of fighters. and I think Conor Benn would give him trouble. There's plenty of the British welterweights out there that I think that he would beat. I don't think, for example, that Florian beats Chris Congo. There are certain ones out there that he would beat. I think he probably beats Chris Jenkins. Styles make fights. But no, I'd have Conor Benn as favourite. Probably in a betting thing, I'd have Conor Benn at 3-on to win that fight. Something like that. Doesn't mean Florian couldn't win, but if I'm going to say what I believe, and I think Conor Benn beats him.
Yeah.
And he's not. By the way, Conor Benn is nowhere near world class yet. But he is improving. He is improving.
Yeah, he's improved. I mean, he's got everything there to make him world class. The gym, the trainer, the opportunities, the matchmaking, the money behind him. It wouldn't surprise me if in 3 years' time he picked up a world title. Not to say that he will. I'm not saying he will be a legitimate world champion, like taking out every name in the division.
Yeah.
But he would be prime for picking up the titles that aren't necessarily always deserved, but you still are a world champion.
Yeah. By the way, with Florian, just so people know this, Florian's fought since Florian's moved on from me. He's fought an Ultimate Boxer, and now Eddie Hearn's saying about he's going to sign him. When I had Florian managed by me, I had the deal with Ultimate Boxer, and I had a contract on the table from Eddie Hearn. So these deals were already in place. It was just that we didn't take the Eddie Hearn deal because Florian wanted to keep a free agent. So this is no sour grapes saying, oh my God, somebody has done. This was all done when I managed him. This deal was already in place and we could have signed the Eddie Hearn deal anytime. But I think with Eddie Hearn now, he'll put him in with Congo. He'll put him in. He's not going to put him in with Ben, but he's going to put him in with some of the welterweights, some of the ones like Congo, who will have him in with Congo. Because you think, well, when I get the crowds back, I could put him in a good fight there. I think sometimes people think, Florian does sell good tickets, he does, but not as many as the numbers that are being touted around are ridiculous. It's not that big. But he sells a good ticket, and I think a good fight like that that's what Eddie will have him for. He won't be building him to world titles. He'll put him in good fights and where it will help venues. And I think Eddie wants that for when the crowds come back. And good signing for Eddie Hearn, Florian Marco, I think. It'd be an exciting fight. He's a really exciting fighter to watch. Good luck to Florian in that. But I think there are some fighters he would beat and some fighters that stylistically he'll struggle with.
Yeah, that's fair. Right, are we about done? That's about an hour's worth.
There we go. All done. Done and dusted.
Brilliant. Right, thank you very much, Steve, and we will see you again next week.
Yeah, take care, Martin. Look after yourself. See you soon, mate.
Bye-bye.
Bye.